legally.
All the mayors in Port Harcourt seem to have a problem with you.
That's I don't know what it is.
No, we have to check you now.
No, you cannot check me because Mayor of Housing
and KO, they are friends.
And KO, they are not just friends, they are partners, and might I say they are cohorts as it is at this time.
Might we say OBIB is our cohort trouble maker?
All right, so good morning, and Mayor of Housing. Let's talk about what is unique about what you're offering Nigerians.
But first of all, tell us, about Mayor of Housing as it is.
Okay, the Mayor of Housing is actually, what is unique about me is two things. Number one is collaboration. I don't do many things I do alone.
Okay.
Yes, I believe in the exponential multiplication of value when they are collaborated.
Right.
So it's called synchrony, and that is the mainstay of why I'm the Mayor of Housing. In fact, that's how the name came about. When I was collaborating and bringing people together, they decided to start calling me the Mayor of Housing. Secondly, I don't engage in any housing solution that will not deliver wow.
Okay.
Yes.
What does that mean?
If the customers will not go wow, then I won't get involved.
Interesting.
Yes, and then I don't sell houses; I sell value.
Right. Okay, so let's delve straight now. There's something the new governor of Rivers State mentioned, and it has to do with social housing. And he says that's going to be one of his priority. What can you say? How can you help Rivers people understand what that even means?
Beautiful. In fact, when I heard that social housing coming from the new governor, I was just wowed. In fact, I've just renamed this administration the Social Housing Administration as their mandate, because social housing is actually very necessary in Nigeria, because right now in Nigeria we actually have 24 to 28 million units of high housing deficits.
Wow.
So as Port Harcourt is right now, people see a lot of houses everywhere. We don't have enough houses, because if you check, many people are living in shanties, many people are squatting, many people are living in places that don't meet the minimum standard to be called a house. So, and the main problem with housing is the high cost of housing and then affordability.
Okay.
So affordability is that something might be expensive, but if there's a plan like mortgage or any other plan,
some flexible payment method,
flexible accessibility plan, it makes it look affordable.
Right.
So in places where they've had a housing crisis, like one of the best places that have succeeded so much is Spain. Singapore also did the same thing. Korea used to have a housing crisis. They did the same thing. It's usually through social housing. So social housing is just, in a nutshell, subsidized housing.
Right.
Housing that you don't pay the actual value for. So let's say a house is worth 20 million naira, and OBIV decide to defray 10 million, and the off-taker has to pay 10 million. That's social housing.
But doesn't that cost the government more?
It doesn't cost the government more, because if you look at the loss of productivity, the crime rate, the bane of low housing situation in any economy,
ease people out a certain way so that they cannot divert funds to other things.
Yes, the economic growth of any location is determined by the quality of livelihood in that location.
Absolutely. Great.
There's a lot of capital flight actually right now between Port Harcourt and Lagos and Calabar, Lagos and Abuja, because many people work in Port Harcourt, but they live in Lagos because they've not seen the kind of environment that suits them. The money they paid for that land, the laborers that were involved in building that house, the money they are paying for rent, and all their livelihood in Lagos is money earned from Port Harcourt but transferred to Lagos because we don't have the enabling environment. And David McClelland of Harvard actually did a research that shows that 95% of your success depends on your environment. And that's why you see crime and a lot of things, and drug abuse and a lot of things are more in places with very bad environment, shanties and local areas. So, but the quality of life sanity. It even affects your sanity. The saneness, let me use that word,
Right.
of living has to do with a decent housing environment. Even children that are brought up in such environments have a better upbringing than people that are brought up in ghettos. So if you go to America, for instance, the ghettos have been a headache to the government. So instead of being areas of productivity, they are now areas of liability.
Right.
So creating housing does not cost the government. It's an investment that pays the government
Right.
in IGR, in productivity, and also helps the economy of that particular location.
Okay, so that's fantastic. Looking at it is already impressive, and listening to you explain it. But how can River State's new administration, what can they do to actualize it? Because we hear all these things that we now refer to as big talk. So how can it be actualized?
The actualization is actually very simple. It will require three things. Number one, they need to be honest to themselves, because if you are applying any scheme in Nigeria with the presumption that Nigeria has a very effective government system and a very effective, there's no corruption in Nigeria, there's no bureaucracy in Nigeria, you are not actually being honest. So I've told people, and I've kept on saying it, that the future of Nigeria depends on effective private sector engagement. So if the government wants to be effective with this social housing, they need to get, number one, effective, proven track record developers that have a penchant for low cost housing, because many of our developers look at the high end housing because that's where the more profit is. I'd rather build one house that will sell for 100 million and make 20 million than to build 100 houses for 1 million that will make 20,000 because it's 100 headache.
Right.
Yeah, so there are people that, like, I have a unit that their job is to research low-cost housing. There's even a new trend of architecture called minimalism architecture, where a house is devoid of so many things, like POP is not a necessity in a house. Those things that increase the cost. There are pillars in a house, they are not necessity. The house is simple, minimal, and we're already looking at substituting indigenous building materials with other building materials, because 90% of our building materials right now are being imported. And the rod and cement alone are the major cost implicators for a home. So if you don't look for how to reduce that in simple homes that people can afford, you won't reduce the cost.
Yet strong homes, durable homes,
Yes,
and
no,
all
they'll
that.
be durable.
Okay,
There are eco-friendly standards all over the world that you get your durability for as long as possible. But minimalism means if it will take 10 to be durable, anything you do above 10 is aesthetic or style. So it's devoid of all the aesthetic and style. It's the minimum durable standard to reduce cost, because people just need a decent shelter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is one. They need to get people that are in the industry doing that. Secondly, they need to get those people to get a template that works with that is profit driven and works. For instance, if they try to do the normal government bidding system, everybody in Nigeria knows that if you're a government contractor, there's a lot of padding, a lot of things happen. And when that happens in housing, there's a minimum to which houses can be reduced.
Okay.
Yes, because what happens in Nigeria is that when they tell you to build something of 10 million, you do a lot of kickbacks and all that, and you end up building something of maybe 1 million. But houses have a minimum you can't go below, because if you go below, it will collapse. It won't even stand. So the regular contractors might compromise that project to a level that you see it won't happen. That's why in Nigeria, the last time social housing worked in Nigeria was in the early 80s. If you check, I don't know if you had any social housing project in Port Harcourt then, but in Jos we had the low-cost housing estate that was built in the early 80s, and that's the last time it worked, because there was sincerity of purpose on the side of the government. So instead of a government trying to turn its people's cultural behavior, it is better you outsource it to a private developer that you can also control, because if you're working for the government, there's some kind of familiarity and clout. But if a private sector person is given terms and conditions by the governor, perform or you are chased out of this state, he's more serious about it.
Right.
Secondly, the accessibility and the financing. Government can subsidize, but they should not allocate. For instance, what I mean is, this house will be 20 million. The government subsidizes that they will pay 10 million for their, let's say, civil servants. They should not have a government agency allocate those lands, because we all know that favoritism, corruption, and everything.
And the people who have like 4 houses.
But so what would be the alternative to?
The alternative is a third-party mortgage or management firm. A private third-party mortgage firm. Let me give you an example. I am the governor. Obi is the mortgage firm. You are the developer. And I come to you, the developer, and say, how much will it take you to build this simple house? And you say 5 million. I say, beautiful. When you finish this house of 5 million, I will pay, as the government, 2.5, so that my people only have to pay 2.5 for that house. Agreed? Then I go to Obi and say, only civil servants of this criteria must. Any day you find out that you
apply.
Yes, that you qualify somebody without this criteria, will delist you. Obi is afraid because she's a private firm. She wants to please me, the governor. She will stick to terms. So, but then the civil servants in the state will go to Obi for pre-qualification. When they are qualified, they don't need to pay even the 2.5. They enter the house and Obi pays the 2.5 on their behalf and starts collecting the maybe 5 naira per month, small, pay small, and in 10 years they have fully paid for the house and now own the house.
But I think that when allocation and favoritism comes is when the amount of houses being built is not enough to go around.
It will go around even when Nigerians with the corruption endemic. That was why I said initially we have to be honest. If we are 1 million Nigerians that need houses and you build 10 million houses and there's still corruption, you see one person that want to take the 10 million.
That's true though. That's true. Greed is a thing.
So please, if you give any room for default, there will be default. If you give any room for exploit, Nigerians will exploit the thing so much it will extinguish.
I hope you don't tempt us to take this a little further, especially from the political angle, because politicians will always be politicians. They want to
exactly, and that's why my solution basically is that you need non-political players for the execution.
But how is it? How possible is it to have those non-political players that are not secretly affiliated to political players?
Because it's a pre-qualification process.
I mean, we don't have political players that have their hands.
Initially, I told you the government needs to be honest.
Okay.
Any new party or new player that is being recruited now, like for instance, I've been in housing for 5 years. I'm not in housing for the government. I'm not in housing for politics. And I have track record. And you recruit someone like the mayor of housing. It's non-political because that's what he has been doing. But Obi, that have job for the past 5 years, has been looking for the trouble of me and KO, that has not been in housing.
And I suddenly register a company.
And suddenly the government now recruits her as the developer. There is an interest. And when she comes, she will represent the interest. For why she was created.
She might just be
honesty
on the part of the government.
Requirement on the part of the government, because sometimes you have good intentions in Nigeria. If you are not honest with yourself, the process with which you go to that good intention will not allow it to see the light.
Okay, but all of these are broadcast. The assumption is, well, the government is listening, but much more, the people are listening.
Yes.
So what does this hold for the people?
Yes, I have been an advocate of going back to the major strength of Nigeria before oil came. Before oil came, the major strength of Nigeria was population. And how we exploited that population was through cooperatives. The tallest house in Nigeria was the cocoa house that was built by the Ibadan Cocoa Farmers Cooperative. The biggest banks in Nigeria there was the cooperative banks. So for the people, I think aside the, the organized public sector and private sectors, if you notice, most of the companies that achieve anything in housing or any feat is usually through their cooperatives. So it is high time that trade groups begin to have cooperatives. Radio broadcasters have their own cooperatives, so that when these houses are made available, you can have a structure, an organized informal structure to access those houses.
Well, the unfortunate truth is that me and Obi can never cooperate.
Don't worry, me and Kay will handle that for you. We'll have a
Wonderful. Can you imagine?
Wonderful handlers. All right, it's been an amazing conversation.
Indeed, but quickly, why don't you just tell us if this thing is doable, if it has success stories and track records that we can look at and say, okay,
yes, it's very doable. It's the simplest thing in that can be done because houses are so tangible that you cannot. They are self-auditing systems.
But are there success stories?
Yes, there are success stories. But as I told you, unfortunately, the success stories are in France, in Spain.
They are not in Nigeria.
In Korea. The only success story in Nigeria I know is the low-cost housing estate in Jos that was done between 78 and 82.
Housing estate?
Elekaya housing estate. Like,
federal housing is in Najib as well.
But you just called it federal. The last one we can remember for the state is the one along between, is it NNG to Transamadi, thereabouts?
No, that's not state, that's the federal, the Transamadi Gardens.
No. There's this high-rise
building
that...
please, let's talk about the Rainbow Town.
The Rainbow Town,
Please, in 5 minutes, the reason I said, in 2 minutes, the reason I said that the government has to be honest to itself and make non-political players the executors of this. Rainbow Town today in Port Harcourt is dead and moribund because it was politically tied. When the government that had a political interest in Rainbow Town left, Rainbow Town left. And the monumental waste that is in Rainbow Town, you wouldn't want to know how many trillion naira
it's
billions of naira. But the same thing with the rail system that along that park area.
If you go there, this money will not
our monorail.
Yes, it shouldn't. This thing shouldn't be politically tied. I know the government has good intentions. Like there is nowhere in the world you will say that Rainbow Town is not a good intention project, wonderful project. But because of the political tie, when politics change,
so
the thing died.
But there's this thing that, and may not be bothered on your maybe one of these days we'll bring you back to really talk about this. But there's this question, and this might negate your thoughts. But people say that social housing, in terms of government putting its hands in housing, might not be the way to go.
What I said here is that they shouldn't put their hands in housing. They should put their subsidy, their waivers in housing. Yes, just make it affordable. Allow the private sector, which is more organized, to do the execution, and you regulate,
which can be more unbiased.
And then you regulate.
We totally need to go now. But I'm aware that you also have properties and stuff that you currently put out for sale and stuff.
Yes, we're bringing up a very wonderful new estate called the Alessa Highlands Estate, and it's gonna, unfortunately, it's high end, it's not low cost, but it's gonna change the trajectory of how housing development is in Port Harcourt. It's just a place where those expatriates and those top IOC that don't live in Port Harcourt because they don't have a decent living environment can key into. It's more like an RA. So if you want to learn more, just Google Alessa Housing.
All right.
Go to
how can they contact you for those?
Yes, you can just call me on 0809 33 78 525 0809 3378525, or you can go to www.themayorofhousing.com to learn more of Alessa Highlands. We're actually giving windows for discount because we're at the pre-launch stage. So if you come now, you'll be happy.
All right, thank you very
so
much for being a part of the show.
You're welcome.
My ace China.
All right, guys, we take a short break right now. When we return, will be time for us to
hook up with our friends from Unicaf. Yes,
I told you that today is really packed on your superstation. Now, this is the perfect idea of a breakfast, isn't it? We'll be right back.
Follow us on social media on all platforms. Facebook at Super 93.3 FM. Twitter at Super News PH.